and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 8th of July. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in China for annual high-level talks about a broad range of issues affecting the two countries, including efforts to denuclearize North Korea. Samsung Electronics suffers a sharp decline in quarterly profits. The Korean company remains the world's largest seller of smartphones, but cheaper phones manufactured by rival firms are taking a bigger bite out of Samsung's market share. Plus, Israel calls up reserve troops in anticipation of a possible escalation of hostilities with the Islamist group that dominates the Gaza Strip. But our top story this morning, the United States and China will hold high-level talks this week about a wide range of issues affecting the two nations. And this includes North Korea's nuclear development program. In the sixth meeting of the US-China Strategic and Economic Dialogue to be held in Beijing on Wednesday and Thursday, Secretary of State John Kerry and Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew will represent the US. Their Chinese counterparts will be State Councillor Yang Jiechi and Vice Premier Wang Yang. Pundits expect the two nations to also exchange views over a string of issues that strain their ties, like territorial disputes in the South China Sea, a huge issue, and also Japan's decision to change its decades-long security policy and to expand its military role. President Park Geun-hye's approval rating has been given a much-needed shot in the arm by the recent visit of Chinese President Xi Jinping to South Korea. According to a new weekly survey conducted by local polling company Realmeter, the president's approval rating jumped 3 percentage points to 46% this week, marking its first uptick in 4 weeks. President Park's polling numbers had been on a steady decline over the past 3 weeks, largely due to the controversy over 2 failed prime minister nominations. Now, this shift in sentiment could play into the ruling Saenuri Party's hands in the run-up to some very important by-elections at the end of this month, where at least 15 parliamentary seats will be up for grabs. Now, staying with domestic politics, and in an effort to break the gridlock and actually get some work done, get some bills passed at the National Assembly, President Park has invited the floor leaders from the two main rival parties to meet with her at the presidential office this week. Our Jim Young-gil reports.
With crucial by-elections coming up at the end of the month, President Park Geun-hye is seeking to rally support around the ruling party by breaking a deadlock at the National Assembly. She has scheduled a meeting with the floor leaders of Korea's two main rival political parties and chief policymakers on Thursday, where she will urge them to pass a series of pending bills and settle unresolved issues. The meeting will be the first of its kind since President Park took office in February last year. She is expected to call for bipartisan cooperation in the passage of urgent bills, such as a government reorganization proposal, as well as a special bill aimed at determining the truth behind the deadly Saenuri ferry disaster in April, and supporting the victims' families. The government reorganization bill contains a proposal by President Park to abolish the Korea Coast Guard, which is under fire for its poor response to the ferry sinking that resulted in the deaths of more than 300 people. President Park also plans to push for the passage of bills aimed at increasing social welfare and removing excessive business regulations. This week, the rival parties are set to clash at the National Assembly as confirmation hearings for 8 cabinet nominees get underway Monday. With the by-election fast approaching on July 30th, the verification process is expected to be a tough one. Lawmakers from the ruling Saenuri Party are under pressure to ensure all 8 nominees are confirmed to complete President Park's cabinet reshuffle and rally voter support. The ruling party is also hoping to ward off another appointment debacle, which could hurt the party's chances in the upcoming election. Opposition lawmakers from the New Politics Alliance for Democracy will attempt to pressure at least 2 nominees to withdraw as part of efforts to highlight the problems with President Park's personnel appointments. Jim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
Now, President Park Geun-hye's chief of staff is taking the fall for the administration's recent appointee failures. Standing before the Parliamentary Steering Committee on Monday, Kim Ki-chun, who chaired the Presidential Office's Personnel Committee, said the burden of both successful and failed appointments lies with him. As for the most recent Prime Minister nominee Moon Chang-guk's controversial remarks on Korean history, which ultimately led him to drop his bid, the Chief of Staff admitted it's very difficult to check on every comment a nominee has made in private gatherings or during lectures. President Park's two Prime Minister nominees withdrew in recent weeks amid controversies over both post-retirement earnings and historical perspectives.
Said that a team of South Korean...
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics has announced its estimated operating profit for the second quarter, and it doesn't look pretty. It stands at 7.2 trillion won, or roughly $7.1 billion US dollars, falling 15% from the previous quarter and 25% compared to the same period last year. The figure also fell far short of market expectations of $8 billion, and this is the first time, in fact, in 2 years that quarterly operating profit has fallen below the 8 trillion won mark. Samsung attributes its lower than expected numbers to the strong Korean currency as well as a slowdown in the global smartphone market growth. Analysts, however, say the Korean tech giant is struggling not only against its main rival Apple, but also against Chinese manufacturers who are pumping out much cheaper phones. Now staying with Samsung, and in an operation that puts some of Hollywood's finest heist movies to complete shame, criminals in Brazil have raided a Samsung Electronics factory and made off with more than $35 million worth of electronic equipment. Local police say around 20 men armed with submachine guns burst into Samsung's factory in Campinas, Sao Paulo, late Monday night local time, and loaded up several trucks with tablets, notebooks and smartphones. Some employees were reportedly held hostage by the criminals, but fortunately no one was hurt. Police think the robbery was an inside job because they managed to get inside so easily, and all the criminals knew their way around the factory. Samsung says it's fully cooperating with the police and will do its best to avoid something similar happening again. Now, hundreds of drivers right here in Korea have launched a class action lawsuit against some of the country's biggest automakers. This after the Korean government announced last month that 2 local automakers, including Hyundai Motor, and 4 foreign brands overstated the gas mileage of some of their vehicles. Hwang Jae reports.
Consumers who bought cars with overstated gas mileage are taking some of Korea's biggest automakers to court. As of now, around 1,700 people have joined a class action lawsuit. The overwhelming majority are owners of Hyundai Motor's popular Santa Fe SUV, taking up almost 90% of claims. Drivers who own Sangyong Motor's Kurando SUV have also joined the lawsuit. A lawyer working on behalf of the drivers says he expects the number of plaintiffs to rise and eventually top 3,000.
We believe automakers have a warranty responsibility since the vehicles have a flaw in a key factor that measures performance, and the Land Ministry has already verified that there is a problem with the vehicles.
The plaintiffs are seeking between $650 to $3,000 US dollars each in compensation. The damages they claim include factors like the extra money they've spent on gas and mental stress. But with the Land Ministry and Industry Ministry divided over the correct way of calculating fuel efficiency, pundits are expecting a fierce legal battle. Even if the plaintiffs win, it doesn't mean all of the 110,000 people who own the models in question will receive compensation. Only those who filed a claim will receive a payout. Hwang Jae, ARIRANG News.
President Park Geun-hye says Seoul is forging ahead with its goal to slash global greenhouse gas emissions, but admits Korean companies fear their efforts will drive up costs. This came out of a meeting between President Park, former U.S. Secretary of Energy Stephen Chu, and President of China's Fudan University Yang Yuliang on Monday in Seoul, where energy policy and climate change were the main topics of conversation. When asked for advice on the policy direction Korea should take on renewable energy, Chu said domestic automakers should strengthen investment in electric vehicles. Financial institutions in Korea and China are wasting absolutely no time taking the necessary steps to create a direct yuan trading market. Now, this is one of the major agreements reached on economic cooperation last week during summit talks between the two countries' leaders. The establishment of this market comes amid the exponential increase in the use of the Chinese currency in global trading and payment. And Na Hyung-kyung reports.
One of Korea's biggest financial firms, Uri Bank, is expected to be in charge of promoting sales and marketing for the Korean branch of China's Bank of Communications. The head of the Bank of Communications, which was appointed as the Chinese yuan clearing bank in Seoul just last week, predicts the amount of transactions settled in yuan by Korean businesses will nearly quadruple to 300 billion yuan, or roughly $48 billion a year in the near future. Analysts say this falls in line with China's push for increasing the use of renminbi by banks and businesses in international transactions. The Hyundai Research Institute says China's currency is increasingly preferred to the Japanese yen in global trade thanks to its large economic scale and stability. The Korea Institute of Finance also says as of October last year, the amount of global trade financing settled in Chinese yuan stood at nearly 9%, outpacing the euro and the yen, and points out that the rate of the yuan's internationalization is 48 times faster than the yen's in the 1980s. In Korea, expectations are high that President Park Geun-hye and Chinese leader Xi Jinping's agreement last week to soon let the two countries' businessmen settle their trade bills in their own currencies will encourage more direct won-yuan trading. However, some experts also warn that the growing presence of the yuan will deepen Seoul's economic dependence on Beijing, though it could help ease pressure on the Korean won's appreciation against the dollar. Na Hyun-kyung, ARIRANG News.
Korea and China are set to embark on a more organized push to fight smog, fine dust and other air-based nastiness. The China National Environmental Monitoring Center and the Korea Environment Corporation are expected to sign an MOU on this Tuesday to strengthen monitoring over a wide range of environmental areas, including air quality, air pollution levels and industrial pollution. A member of the Korea Environment Corporation says the move is based on the agreement on sharing related data that was reached during Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit late last week to Seoul. Now, you may not know it today, but Korea has been in the grips of an early summer heat wave recently, with the mercury soaring past 32 degrees Celsius the past couple of days. It can be pretty uncomfortable and hard to cool down on days like that, but doctors say a source of relief from the stifling heat can be found in seasonal fruits. Paul Lee reports.
Hot and humid conditions are running rampant through the streets of Seoul during the midday sun, with crowds scrambling to find sweet relief in the form of a freshly made fruit drink.
I don't have much appetite these days since it's so hot. That's why it feels great and refreshing to drink fruit juice.
These drinks are not only tasty, but in fact play a key role in replenishing your body during the summer season. Excessive sweating can leave people dehydrated and even lacking nutrients. Fortunately, doctors say a healthy serving of fruit juice can help you get back on your feet.
Fruits grown in the summer are sweet and filled with water. Eating these fruits can be very helpful in replenishing energy and fluids after you sweat.
Among the wide selection of garden choices, watermelons are said to be the best for beating the summer heat, followed by tomatoes, pineapples, and kiwis. Oranges, peaches, and mangoes are also seasonal favorites.
Another helpful tip is to mix fruits in a salad or icy punch, as many of the flavors complement each other for delicious results.
Watermelon helps to cleanse your body of waste, while grapes act to supply you with energy. It's recommended that you mix and eat these fruits in a fruit punch to restore your vitality during the fatiguing summer.
The capital region will be experiencing high temperatures through next week due to the delayed monsoon front. So in order to get through the scorching heat, try one of Mother Nature's sweetest gifts to refresh your body and mind. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Hello, Mark.
Well, the heat only seems to be rising along the Gaza Strip there, following the deaths of not only Israeli but also Palestinian teenagers. Now, both sides are exchanging fire, and this, of course, is escalating the already heightened tensions.
That's right, Mark. Palestinian militants now claiming Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 9 of their comrades, marking the highest death toll in a couple years since a cross-border war back in 2012. Now, Hamas said 7 of its fighters were killed when a tunnel collapsed following a strike, and 2 others in a separate drone attack. Israel's military has carried out strikes against 15 Hamas targets since Sunday, and on Monday it drew up a reserve 1,500 men strong for the first time since 2012, citing military preparedness. Now, Hamas leaders have threatened revenge after it bombarded Israel with some 40 rockets and mortar fire. Meanwhile, in an update to investigations on the Palestinian teens' kidnap and murder, Israeli police say 3 of the 6 Israeli suspects arrested have confessed to their crimes. Turning now to the Vatican, Pope Francis has begged for forgiveness to the parishioners sexually abused at the hands of Catholic clerics, promising to hold accountable those who failed to protect the children. In a private morning mass with 6 adult victims from Ireland, Britain, and Germany, the pontiff said he felt in his heart deep pain and suffering for the, quote, sacrilegious cult, and noted the cover-up was as bad as the crime itself. It was his first meeting with victims in his 16-month-old pontificate, drawing criticism that it didn't happen earlier. Critics are calling for follow-up action that proves the meeting was not simply a ceremonial event. Preliminary results have placed Afghanistan's former finance minister Ashraf Ghani in the lead to become the country's next head of state. The Independent Election Commission gave Ghani 56.4% of the vote to his rival Abdullah Abdullah's 43.5% in the June 14th presidential runoff. Now, Abdullah's campaign has angrily rejected the results, calling it a coup against people's votes. Both camps have questioned the validity of the ballot. Votes are being rechecked at more than 7,000 polling stations. That's about a third of the centers. Final results are set to be released later this month on July 22nd. And finally, a powerful earthquake has rocked much of southern Mexico and Central America at large, triggering mudslides and damaging communication infrastructure as well as buildings. The U.S. Geological Survey said the magnitude 6.9 temblor, downgraded from an earlier reading of 7.1, was centered 2 kilometers northeast of Puerto Madero near the Guatemala border. Dozens of homes were evacuated and affected residents taken to hospitals. At least 4 people were killed in the quake, including 2 in their collapsing home in San Marcos and a newborn baby hit by a piece of fault ceiling in a hospital in the same town.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with some Winter Paralympics news as Pyeongchang is set to host a number of Winter Paralympics competitions in preparations for the 2018 Winter Paralympics. Now, according to the organizing committee for the 2018 Winter Paralympics, Pyeongchang will host up to 2 international competitions per year for each of the Winter Paralympic sports. Now, this is, of course, sanctioned by the International Paralympics Committee for 3 years, from 2014 to 2017. Meanwhile, these sports include alpine skiing, para-snowboarding, ice sledge hockey, biathlon, cross-country skiing, and wheelchair curling. And now moving over to the Brazil World Cup, where the 32 managers for the 32 World Cup nations were ranked in a weekly sports magazine. And for manager Hong Myung-bo, well, he's way down there. Now, according to Germany's Sports Bild magazine, manager Hong Myung-bo was listed at number 26 out of the 32 managers in the World Cup. According to the article, Korea was drawn with Belgium, Algeria, and Russia, a group they believe to be relatively easy, but still managed to drop out of the group stages without a single win. Meanwhile, Costa Rica's Jorge Luis Pinto was ranked number 1 in the list. And now moving over to the KBO, where the 4 teams try to make up the rained down games from Sunday. The NC Dinos beat the LG Twins in a close game 4-1. So let's take a look at the SK Wyverns take on the Lotte Giants. Now, third inning of the game, Choi Jun-suk, an RBI single to left gives the Lotte Giants the 1-0 lead. But fourth inning, Kim Sang-hyun, an RBI triple to center, and we're tied 1-1 before Park Jung-kwon here, an RBI single to center, makes it 2-1. Not done yet, though. Kim Gang-min this time, a 2-run single to left, and SK has the lead 4-1. We shift over to the 5th inning. Choi Jun-suk once again, this time a 2-run single to left, and deficit is cut 4-3. But 6th inning, here come the SK Wyverns again. Na Ju-won, 2-run single to center, sparking a 5-run 6th inning as the SK Wyverns hold on to win it 10-3. Your final score. And finishing things off, but staying in the KBO with the All-Star Game in Gwangju coming up next week. The All-Star voting results are out with some rather interesting results. And unlike the previous All-Star Games, no one team gets the most votes in the starting 11, as the result sees quite a parity, with 11 stars being chosen via majority votes per position. Nexon's Kang Jong-ho and NC's Na Sung-bum were neck and neck for most of the overall votes, but the second-year slugger Na Sung-bum ends up with the most votes, despite Kang Jong-ho getting one more vote amongst the clear voting. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your weather update. Well, yesterday marked as the hottest day of the season here in Seoul. Hard to believe typhoon was on the way. Well, for today, we'll have similar to a tad cooler highs compared to yesterday under lots of clouds with showers in most regions. So it's drizzling right now in the upper parts of the peninsula, while the regions down south should see showers in the afternoon hours. And this is Typhoon Noguri, and it's gradually gaining power. It's heading to Okinawa, Japan, and Korea will be indirectly affected by it today. Strong winds and high waves are expected. Sudden far sea of Jeju. And tomorrow, landing waters in south of Jeju should be directly affected by it, since the typhoon is forecasted to approach the Korean peninsula the closest from tomorrow evening to Thursday morning. So please take precautions on facility maintenance. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The high in Seoul will rise to 31, and Gwangju will also rise to 31 as well, while Daegu will peak to 30, and Busan should make it to 28 this afternoon. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like down on Jeju and Daejeon should see a high of 28 and 30 respectively, while Dokdo will reach 27. Well, that's all for me at this hour, but I'll be back with more updates afternoon.
Okay, well, that's all we have for now. We'll be back with another newscast at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.